Welcome to Transatlantic Wrestling Talk. I'm your host, as always, Andy, joined by always with my brother Dale. How are we doing, bud?
I'm going to open this up with how this WrestleMania opens up, okay? Besides the stars and stripes and the salute, we're going to go, ho! But I am doing wonderful, my friend. I am doing wonderful. We are going into WrestleMania 7 today. It's a dreary day over on Long Island right now, but it's a dreary atmosphere all throughout the world, okay? So that's why when I asked what WrestleMania do you want to do, it might not correlate as far as the date goes, but we're going to say this, with everything going on in the Ukraine and Russia, we figured we revisit WrestleMania 7, a truly patriotic WrestleMania, if that.
Yeah, it really was, mate. And it is relevant to today because it's relevant in the fact of could they do this again, and how gutted is Vince McMahon that he doesn't have Rusev on the roster at the moment.
Actually, if you ask me, I think that was the best way to do that, where they had the it was an outdoor event, Cena versus Rusev. If you're looking back about 5, 6, 7 years later, it was great. The way they did it, with Rusev coming through the tank and Lana just looking fantastic.
Quality.
Yeah.
I think they've. Do you know what? If they were doing that this year, I think it'd be money, mate. Big money. You know what I mean?
They don't have the balls to do that. I'm surprised they didn't start a couple of months ago when the original threat of Russia was there, because it's not like Putin, not to get political, but it's not like, we didn't know who the dictator was back then. So, maybe we'll get Alexander Turkai or what was his name? What was the guy? Sergei Turkai, who was in ECW. He was like a lackey.
Oh yeah. It's gone.
Alexander Sergei. I don't know.
It was Alexander, wasn't it?
Turkai. I don't know.
God knows.
Not George Turkai. But anyway, we go back to March. What is it? March 24th, 1991. WrestleMania. Yeah. And Andy.
One thing I want to ask you straight away is, if WWE was a traded company like it is now, would they have done this back then?
They would have sanctioned and not have the Peacock network in Russia, though.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So
actually, they probably, maybe NBC would have actually stopped airing anything over there.
Yeah, well, this card, mate, it's a stacked card, isn't it? Really, from start to finish. Obviously, we know the backstory. Sergeant Slaughter, which was quite shocking at the time, took the belt off Warrior at the Royal Rumble. Nobody expected that. They did not expect that, and the kickoff after he got it was major. But it's just so well played by Vince. This is Vince at his best, isn't it?
Yeah, I agree. We did we did Survivor Series from the prior year, which led into showing Sergeant Slaughter and how fantastic he was. And we would see him just be a fantastic heel at this point. So, he cut that scathing promo just talking crap about the troops on there. And it was just, you knew you had a heel there. The decision to get the belt off of Warrior, they kind of had their hand forced on them with that. Yeah. And they did it in the best way possible. And we'll explain that later on. But
sometimes they say, don't they, mate, that sometimes the best laid plans and the way that you have to swerve. And do you know what? One thing I will go back to here is modern day, when all the stars got stuck on the plane, from Saudi that time, and they had all NXT guys that they had to bring into SmackDown for the night, and we had Adam Cole versus Bryan Danielson, or Daniel Bryan at the time. And it was fantastic. It really was, but it was not something that they wanted to do. And I think this is probably along the same lines in that sense of, it's probably not what they wanted to do, but it worked out perfectly for them.
It's because Triple H said the next man up mentality, which is something that every sports team always does, and that's actually how a business is run. I do believe that when you look in the whole grand scheme of things, though, you need the elements and pieces there. So it just happens to be fitting that the Macho Man was able to lay his hand into making Sergeant Slaughter the title winner at that point. So one thing I'd like to point out too is that we talk about the showcase of the Immortals. That was one thing that they would always say. Years later, it is a showcase of Immortals. We had 15 matches on this card.
Yeah, it was a big card, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it was just nonstop. And we don't review exactly everything going on, but when I was playing this, I was just like, man, another match. They start off with a dark match that we didn't even see. It was Coco Beware against the Brooklyn Brawler, so that I'm sure Coco won. But what's the recipe for success in the early 90s of opening up a pay-per-view, Andy?
It should just be starting it with some kind of, at this time, it's just anyone, wasn't it? There wasn't no rhyme or reason at this point in time, I don't think.
Wrong. You are wrong, sir. You are wrong. You get 15 demerits, and Dale gets points for House Gryffindor.
Sorry, sir.
Yeah. The Rockers were always a successful story anytime you actually start them off. So here we see the Rockers defeat Haku and the Barbarian. And listen, you just know when you have Marty Jannetty and Shawn Michaels coming in there and they're giving Michaels the mic a little bit more doing these promos. And by the way, Sean Moody, once again, fantastic in his role. Okay. They're going off against Bobby the Brain Heenan with Haku and the Barbarian. And what'd you think of Haku and the Barbarian, Andy?
I liked them. Thought they were all right as a team. Do you know what I mean? It wasn't too bad. It was all right. But I still preferred the Barbarian and the Warlord.
So you got the Powers of Pain and then the Faces of Fear. So look, Barbarian always had alliteration everywhere he went. So good for him, right?
Yeah. And obviously you had Bobby the Brain with him here. And I always think, do you know what's one thing that we don't see nowadays with any kinds of managers now, apart from Paul Heyman to an extent, but we don't see it anywhere. And obviously Paul's at the start of the card. Sorry, at the main event stage, isn't he? But we don't see a lot of managers back in them days. If you're with Jimmy Hart or Bobby the Brain, it automatically give you enhanced you.
Yep.
But we don't see that now.
They have an element there right now, if you ask me. There is somebody there. I think Malcolm Bivens should be that guy.
Yeah.
I love what I see from him. He's too much of a character. I thought back in the day that he could have been something, but then they just give him lackeys. It's really bad.
Yeah.
And plus the fact they fire
MVP.
everybody that they have. Yeah, MVP was fantastic too. So I think, I think Malcolm Bivens is the next best thing to Bobby Heenan right now. Just looking his demeanor, his promo skills are fantastic, underrated, and they should be recognized. So you know what? On Twitter, I might do a appreciation
what's his name
post
as well? Oh God, my man's gone blank now. Kenny Omega's manager.
We spoke about Callis on the X3 show.
Don Callis, that's it, yeah.
And man, he's just brilliant. He's, by the way, if you're on Twitter, you should follow every single time that he talks smack to Lance Storm. It's probably the most funniest and comedic Twitter accounts you could see out there. Yeah. Callis is a genius. You could say whatever he wants about whoever he manages. He's got a mind for the business, and I love him. I forgot to ask you something. When they open up, how did you appreciate, or how much did you appreciate Willie Nelson singing the national anthem?
A lot. And you know what? I'm not even American, mate, so you had no disrespect, but your national anthem means fuck all to me. Same as I suppose God Save the Queen to use doesn't really mean much, do you know what I mean? But
yeah.
I love Willie Nelson, so yeah, it did mean a lot to me.
Yeah, that was good. And he had this nice black jeans and a tucked in Wrestlemania shirt with the bandana. I'm like, that's Willie. He would be the same today too.
Yeah, because I always say normally the national anthem part's always a skip part for me. But I think the only two I haven't never skipped is Willie Nelson and Aretha Franklin.
Yeah, the Queen of Soul, man. I mean, she was just talented. I remember I went to a WrestleMania and they had the Boys Choir of Harlem and they sang great. It was fantastic. I'm not walking out. I actually, at my friend's wedding, I said to him that I would sing the Canadian national anthem for him if he wanted. Nobody there was Canadian, but I just figured I'd put that out there.
Yeah. So in the first match, we had the Rockers. They defeated the Barbarian and Haku. Why did the Rockers never win the tag team championship? I mean, we know they did, but it never got anywhere because the bottom rope snapped and they just kind of done what WWE still do to this day and just kind of hot shot it. Why do you think they never had that? Because they had everything to be it, and especially I loved this year of the tag team wrestling. I really did, because it was just so like the themes and everything else that went with it. I loved it. I mean, especially me as a young kid, I loved it.
Yeah. I mean, especially because that was tag team wrestling. Like we talked about a couple pay-per-views ago, Owen Hart and Jim Neidhart coming out. It was just a cluster of a match, but it's showcasing Owen. And I think it was against the Orient Express. And I think it was for one of the Royal Rumbles that we did. It just goes to show you the early 90s tag team wrestling was just fun to watch. I think, to be honest with you, I think these guys were always in the doghouse and couldn't be trusted.
Yeah.
And then they knew they had to separate them too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Take a look at any shoot story on either Marty or Sean. The Sean
I wonder if Marty's the one that kind of throws Sean into all that stuff, because Marty's still going for it now, isn't he? Even now to this day.
He put on Facebook poll to see whether or not he should bang this girl that could be his daughter, but might not be. I'm not going to get it. I'm not going to go into that. But Sean Mooney, by the way, would be popping up every now and again. And he's a hidden treasure as far as interviewers go in the wrestling industry. And he had a great speaking voice, always a positive note. Just, shout out to Sean, because he was fantastic. My notes here, by the way, was starting with the Rockers is a surefire way to have an incredible pay-per-view, but it was just weird because the future Faces of Fear don't have an entrance.
Yeah,
and that's an ongoing theme too.
One thing I've got written here as well was the Faces of Fear the first tag team to be thrown together because there was nothing else going on for them.
Were they? Yeah, it could be. But then look, then they would go to WCW and just be feared.
Yeah. Okay, well, we'll move on to match 2, which I've got my notes here. And the first note I have on this is what a tragic match. And what I mean by that is I don't mean the actual match, I mean the participants in it. Sad. Sad.
Both these guys weren't long for the earth. I mean, Kerry Von Erich, a couple of years after this, I think, died. 93 was when he died.
Yeah.
But if you ask Hogan, he was on the plane with him, a week before he was going to Japan. Even though Kerry couldn't even go anywhere.
Tell you one thing with this is, at this point, Von Erich is wrestling with one leg.
Unbelievable.
And you can't even tell. I literally watched this match with the most... I watched it where I could not concentrate anymore. Just to see if I could see anything about his prosthetic foot, and I could not see anything with it.
Well, that's why they call him the tornado, because he was able to pivot easier, just spinning on the one leg. Yeah. Anyway, the one note that I have
one thing as well with these two have got in common. What's that?
That they have in common? Well, you already said they're both dead.
Yeah, but you know what else? They both died with a bullet in the head. Obviously, different circumstances, but
yeah. I mean, Dino, who really knows, right?
Mate, I'm full of fucking morbid facts, I really am.
That's what this show needs, first off. So we have we'll start the Forensic Files, Transatlantic Talk, Forensic Files. So put the FF afterwards. I have one note for this match, and it's Dino Bravo's nose looks upside down.
Yes, it does. It does. And on my notes as well, I've put no wonder Dino Bravo never became a star. He was never a star. And I stand by that.
But he would elevate talent.
Yeah. Okay,
well, just putting it out there. They showed the other participants as far as the guests goes, and Regis Philbin is not funny. No. Marla Maples, who the fuck is that? As an American, I could even say that. And rip Alex Trebek. Gene called him a dear friend, and Alex then calls him a different name.
I don't even know any of them, mate. And do you know what? On WrestleMania, a lot of time when they show these stars, I switch off because I don't have a clue there. But Kenny Van Hart gets the win. Texas Tornado defeats him. Right decision in my eyes based on the time frame and whatnot. Good. Sure. And then we moved on to the next match. My man, the British Bulldog. Oh, what a guy. What a guy.
I have like a few in-depth notes on this match. Okay. Not to go too.
Can I just say one thing just very quickly? And I only made one note on this match is modern day people say keep away. Modern day people turn around and say stay away, big man versus big man, because it never works. Go back there and tell Bulldog and Warlord it doesn't work.
Thank you. And I totally agree with this. And wrestling fans, no matter what age, we're going to tell you right now why this works so well. But I'm going to get into a couple of things prior to that. Well, I should say this. This is a match of fashion statements that will never come back. Bulldog's hair, Warlord's facial hair, and Slick's suit. Slick's LJN was the most accurate figure ever. Where's Matilda? Okay. Winston is in great shape for a vet's wet dream. And this is the main take. Sorry about that. This is the main take from here. All right. This is all seriousness. The spot here is the full Nelson. The crowd ate it up. When you have the storyline being, I will break the full Nelson. Okay. Think of Chris Masters about 15 years ago, and how he made that the spot in the match, and the crowd would eat up the fact that, hey, somebody might break it. Now, what's left after that, like in a guy's trajectory of a career.
Yeah.
But the fact that you're fighting from underneath, Bulldog, who's a big man, is fighting from underneath and will break Warlord's full Nelson, because let's face it, Warlord is, I mean, come on, he's brick.
I think Warlord would have got a lot further in his career pre-steroid trial.
Yeah, he would have. Yeah, you could definitely see him with a belt on, man. And he would look like that when he was 19.
Yeah, crazy, isn't it?
He takes up the whole hallway in class. Think about that. But like I said, they're working for the spot. That whole match is teasing the full Nelson. I love that stuff, man. Especially when you have a submission move, it's easier to do. You could kind of do that with moves like the Diamond Cutter and the RKO, but now it's just applying something that's torturous. And Bulldog comes out here with a clean victory, no interference with Slick whatsoever. Like, it's just, the running power slam, a very underrated move. I think we need more of that. Like, the spot is the move.
Yeah, and the thing is, the whole story you're trying to tell and stuff like that, as I said, people go on, big man versus big man never works. Yes, it does. Yes, it does, and this proves it does.
Yep. Yeah.
Okay, but as I say, Bulldog comes out with the win. Next on the list, we have the Nasty Boys versus the Far Foundation. And obviously, this is where the Nasties win the championships and go on their way then. And obviously, after this, Bret Hart and Jim Nile. I remember watching this match as a kid, and I wasn't mad at this. I wasn't mad at the fact that, I mean, even though I was only like 6 or 7 at the time. No, I'm 7 because I'm the same age as WrestleMania, believe it or not, same as yourself. So I remember watching this, and I remember even at that young age thinking, oh, Bret will go on his own now.
Yeah. This is my note here is this is Bret's prerequisite. The interview right beforehand just shows like, hey, we can take the training wheels off of him. And that's exactly what they did. I mean, Jerry Saggs was in this match for a long time.
Yeah,
like a long time. We talked about Vincent a couple of weeks ago, or Virgil, being in that match and taking a lot of the heat during Starrcade 97. Jerry Saggs was in there taking a lot. The Nasties knew how to sell and really put over people. They were good heels, man. I'm not sure why Neidhart always wears a do-rag, but whatever. It's a classic heel versus babyface match. And I love the ending. I love the finish. I love the fact that Jimmy Hart, it kind of, I looked up really quickly and I was like, why is it looked like he had the zigzags and stuff of Kamala on the back of his jacket, but he wore the helmet. He was out here a lot today.
Yeah.
He was out here a lot.
He was.
So,
but not overbearing either. Not overbearing. He was there enough.
Yeah. No, I agree. And that's what managers should do. They have their own stable. Yeah. So, great match. I think we lead into something that's right behind me, correct?
We do. Jake Roberts versus Rick Martel in the one and only blindfold match in WWE, or F/F, is it?
I think there was another one. So, yes. And I'm not going to sit here and say for good reason. Like I said, the video packages, we always talk about the video packages and the production, always letting you know where we are in the story.
Yeah.
And this was perfect example right here. And I think in my big main standout point on this was the fact that they literally have the best crowd interaction in this match. You see right there, Jake is pointing. He would do it. Should I go to the left? You'd hear crowd going, no. He'd go to the right. No. He'd point to the center. Yeah.
And the whole story with Jake losing his eyes because of the incense. And, they don't do this anymore, do they? They don't build it like this, do you know what I mean? It's even like a cage match. Sometimes we're in a cage where the original cage matches back in the 80s were down to the fact of the heel had run away from the babyface for a while. And then, in the end, it'll be like, I'm going to get my hands on you. And it was like, right, okay, in a cage, you can't run now. And, it meant something. It was the reason for something, you know what I mean? But nowadays, gimmick matches just seem to be just thrown there for any reason.
We could get onto a whole other conversation about it, but that's because kayfabe was just totally gone.
Yeah,
remember, Heyman said this in the ECW documentary when Sandman was blinded. He said, the guy stayed home.
Yeah.
He lived the gimmick and he lived who he was.
Do you know what pisses me off, right, is I feel like wrestling fans are to blame for this just as much as the actual, promoters and whatnot, right? And the reason I'll say that is, I assume you have soap operas in America.
Yes.
Right? And you have, let's use Friends for an example, Dr. Drake Ramore or whatever, right? We all know it's not real. And we all know that it's an episodic TV program and stuff. We still get invested in it. And that's what pisses me off, because everyone goes, well, back when kayfabe, back on this, right? A wrestler shouldn't have to stay at home, because at the end of the day, if the fans have that mindset of what we are watching is a predetermined thing and it's there for entertainment purposes, and watch it as though you watch a soap, you'd enjoy it a lot more. That's what I do. I watch it like that. People go on saying, oh, this person's put this on social media. Well, don't fucking follow them then. If that's what you don't want to do, don't follow them. I distinguish the two people between, the wrestler and the person. Do you know what I mean? Because they're two totally different things. And, I go and watch a movie, right? If I watch, say, the new Batman, and you've got Robert Pattinson and whoever the bloody, but I haven't seen the new film yet, so I can't really comment. No, it's probably a bad example. But all right, let's use Batman, Christopher Bale, right? Let's have a look at that, right? So they filmed that film, and Christopher Bale and Heath Ledger are standing there at the premiere. Are people going to start kicking off, going, "Oh, you're ruining it"? No, they're not. So I don't get why they do this with wrestling.
Yes, I agree with that. It does go both ways, though. I don't see Roman Reigns taking pictures of what he's eating.
Yeah.
So live it up a little bit, that's why I stopped following people like Alexa Bliss. I mean, she's just terrible for the industry, but you're right, though. I agree. Look, separate the two. But this match was fun. Jake ends up winning for a match that had hardly any physical interaction. Boy, was it fun.
Yeah.
And the treat is the Snake at the end. Always.
I don't get why Jake the Snake Roberts never got a title run or never got near the title picture. I think I do know why, because obviously he's unreliable and whatnot, but he was so good, wasn't he? Psychology wise and everything. Obviously AEW have done well getting hold of him, and they're probably using him more backstage than what they are front of house, but he's just got so much to give, hasn't he?
I don't know what contributions. I really don't know what contributions a lot of these elder statesmen, as you could say, are doing in AEW right now.
Yeah.
I think that will change with reasons. But, I do believe that he could have been a great IC title holder.
Yeah.
You know, and I don't know
Yeah,
about World, but look, according to Jake, he said that, you know, Ultimate Warrior screwed his chances up because Ultimate Warrior quit and got fired, and he was next to get the strap. You know, that's what he said on Dark Side, but who knows? Speaking of going into the dark side, this is the first time we revisit a WrestleMania Undertaker match, his first one ever, Andy. And who's it against?
First one ever with Jimmy Superfly Snuka.
Somebody who actually murdered somebody too. Isn't that fantastic? Isn't that just wonderful? It's just karma right there, that the first time we see him doing a burial on somebody, it's somebody that's dead and also killed somebody.
Yeah.
By the way, just in case you haven't heard, Jimmy Snuka killed somebody and was finally indicted on charges, but then died because he had pancreatic cancer. But I don't care because he's an asshole.
Yeah. And his daughter's shit wrestler as well. Let's move on anyway. So Undertaker just blasts him out here, doesn't he? As we'd expect from the Undertaker at that time period. He's with Paul Bearer. He goes, you know, he's at the races here, isn't he? He's off to he's getting ready to go into what will be a legendary career.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, you know, it's just, this is it. Like, here it is, guys. I don't think they ever had anything with the streak. This is just kind of like a beat 'em up match. And by the way, I will say that Snuka was in fantastic shape, even if this was like actually like, you know.
And the one thing I'll tell you as well is it just shows you, even back then, WrestleMania, and this was a bit of a one-sided beatdown. You can have blow-off matches at a big pay-per-view. I mean, you can have blow-off matches anywhere. We don't really get to see them much anymore, do we?
Yeah.
But shows they still have a place in building that long-term character. AEW, Warlord taking out. Okay, and then we're going to move on from the good to the amazing. Ultimate Warrior versus Randy Savage with Queen Sherry retirement match. Randy Savage should never have been a retirement match, which we know it never was in the end anyway. But he was just awesome in this match, was he not?
This is one of my favorite matches ever. I hate the Ultimate Warrior. I love this match. I love the way that Savage just pinpointed everything about it. I love the fact that, I mean, I could take into account that Ultimate Warrior did kick out of like 5 elbow drops. And am I a fan of that? Not really, because I wanted Macho Man to win, but I love the fact that, you know, it took how many like torpedo tackles from Ultimate Warrior to put away Savage, and just to pull Savage's lifeless body up, you know. And this match was going on for, I have time here. What do you have time here? 20 minutes.
20 minutes, 47. It was the longest match on the card.
And it told a whole story. The one tiny nitpick I have is when Macho Man kicks out from Warrior later on in the match, and Warrior's looking at his hands and he's kind of leaving. You could just tell this guy just really didn't know how to mentally put things together, and even in a match. But you could tell that also Macho Man planned everything out for this guy, and it just made it probably,
you know, this got
one of the greatest matches ever.
It got voted Warrior's second best ever matches by Sportskeeda. Who was number one?
It got to be against Hogan, right? Got to be against Hogan, right?
Nope.
Andre?
No, versus Randy Savage at SummerSlam 92 was rated by the Sportskeeda guys. So them two have got 1 and 2.
Good stuff, Zane.
But there's a what you call it. It's interesting to know that both his best matches, or, you know, obviously, you know, it's Sportskeeda, but they've got a large following, and you know, I like Sportskeeda, respectable. And it's interesting that both his number 2 and 1 matches are both with Randy Savage.
The guy made your job easier. We talk about teammates, you know, and you see a football team every week. You know, it's your teammates. Well, we
can't not say, you know, the previous WrestleMania, which we'll revisit at some point. Give Hogan his due. Hogan led him so well in that match as well.
Yeah, especially politicking your career through. But still, you know what? Like we said, Macho Man. We forgot to mention one other thing. So I mentioned in beforehand how Jim Duggan announced the first match, and he actually didn't do a bad job. I'll put it out there. Yeah. But they had spot ins. They had Lord Alfred Hayes come in for a couple matches, who was just phenomenal. Yeah. And in this case, Heenan was an announcer too, and Heenan was very much on the side of heel Macho Man, hates Warrior, always hated Warrior, also on a personal level too. And that's a whole other topic. But I will say this: when the ending happened and Macho Man lost and was counting the lights, and there were Elizabeth was on the outside, and Sherry started hitting Macho Man, and Elizabeth came in to help out, and Macho Man and her embraced and got together. It was one of the best moments ever in the history of professional wrestling. Heenan was making fun of the crowd. Heenan was making fun of the crowd and yelling.
Heenan was just brilliant altogether, wasn't he? Whether it was the crowd, whether it was on the commentary, I miss him so much.
Yeah, I love that man. I really do.
Well, we're going to go from the great to the downright. Do you know what? I couldn't even watch the end of this because I was a massive Demolition fan. I loved them. I loved the whole thingies and stuff like that. And just to see them getting jobbed out to two people who Ten Ryu and Kanito, whatever.
Yeah, and just the fact that how racist it was of Regis Philbin to say, hey, so I'm going to talk with the Japanese guys, and he starts naming car companies, and that's when they acknowledge him. Like, come on. So I'm not going to spend any time on this match. Tenryu and Kateo win, and it was awful.
Yeah, awful. Poor Demolition. Next match, good match, went 10 minutes 46, Bossman versus Mr. Perfect. I probably would like to see Bossman win here, but at the same time, after the match that we got at SummerSlam 92 makes me feel better about this one.
Yeah, I agree. Bossman came out super over. By the way, production team, once again, they had an iconic entry to where somebody's music would hit. Then all of a sudden the camera would go through the aisleway to go see them enter. Loved it. And that panoramic shot of showing actually how much the crowd was into Bossman. Excellent. Yeah. Good story to tell here too. Kurt Hennig could elevate anybody at anything.
Let's not take it away from Bossman. He was a great worker, mate.
Well, without a doubt, he was actually. I think he was in the best shape of his life at this point.
Yes, he was.
He lost a decent amount of weight. Yeah. Like I said, Mr. Perfect could elevate anybody in the ring, and there was one point. One of my notes is Mr. Perfect outshined Brett with outselling.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. On this night only. They would always go back and forth. They definitely had competitions. But one other thing I mentioned is that I'm sure Mr. Perfect could also elevate Moose into having a good interview. Had to throw that in there, Andy.
All right. Yeah, fuck Moose. That's all we've got to say about that. Or Mute, as we like to call him nowadays. Next match, real big squash match. We'll rifle through some of these because, to be honest, the next matches, I don't get why they're up the top end of the card, really. If it was me, I would have put the Jake Roberts, Martel, Undertaker, Snooker, Warrior versus Savage, and probably Nasty Boys as well up at this upper end of the card.
Good point.
Earthquake squashes Valentine. Again, Earthquake had probably already had this time here of how big he was going to go from a single star. He'd not long after this, he'd go with Typhoon and whatnot. Which is great,
Shark.
But yes, yeah. But yeah, just a squash match, Valentine. Next
Earthquake
match,
Earthquake over everyone's lesbian aunt.
Yeah. Next match, we had the Legion of Doom, Powers and Glory against the squash match. Felt really sorry on these two here, Paul Roman and Hercules. They'd been around the company for a while at this point, and obviously the Legion of Doom had just come in. I was never a Road Warriors fan, and they were all right, but I didn't think they was as big as what they potentially thought.
Not here. Territory days. Actually, WCCW and WWE.
They were better in there, wasn't they? But with the tackle pads and whatnot, it's all right. Virgil versus DiBiase. This match went 7 minutes 41. Not a bad little match. This one
told the story.
Told the story, and also it furthered that story, which obviously we go to the next year at this year, the SummerSlam of that year, we would get another good match where Virgil would finally overcome him and win the $1 Million Championship. No mad at that at all. Next one, Mountie versus poor Tito, but let's face it, Tito was pretty much done at this point, wasn't he? So
cattle prod to the tummy. Prod to the tummy, Actually, no,
done.
Tito, this version of Tito was kind of done. If you let the Peacock version keep going when they go to the next year's WrestleMania, he would open up against who?
Can't remember. WrestleMania 8. It was.
I'll tell you, he's not your boy toy. He's not your boy toy.
It was Shawn Michaels, wasn't it? Yeah, bloody hell.
Yeah. Good match. And the teardrop suplex here, my friend. We are going into the run of the mill. Hey, does anybody have any questions asked about who's going to win this one? It's right behind you, Andy.
All right. The best match in a long time. One of my favorite WrestleMania main events. And you know what? It's not even for the match itself. Although the match itself was good. And there was part of it where you thought Slaughter was going to win, which you needed to have in this one. And I feel like the crowd was into it because nobody's seen him beating the Warrior. I think people believed that Hogan could get beat in this match, which makes a really interesting match and something that we really like. The whole story was just quality in the lead up to it. And because of it being so relative to reality of what was going on in the Middle East and stuff at the time, that it really made it relevant and it really made it, you know, like that it was something all America could get behind, wasn't it, at the time?
You said it before best, because you could bring this up now and it could still be relevant. Obviously, technology's changed, the way we communicate has changed totally, and how we could blackball another country changed too. But like, even if you pivot a camera around, instead of having everybody having a talk show, how about have somebody be interviewed with the crowd behind them and they could talk about that? If you notice, every big angle back then started with an interview like that. And I'm not talking about Ultimate Warrior and Papa Shango.
Nope.
You know, like you would just see them like Ted DiBiase kicking a basketball out of a kid's hand. You know, like they were all into the little things. So when he's burning Hulk Hogan's shirt, you know, it's, you know,
when he burns the American flag, that was just next level, wasn't it? And do you know what's funny as well? Do you know what he said about he had the limousine, didn't he, that he used to travel from town to town in?
Yeah.
Do you know, I was speaking to him on Twitter a couple of weeks ago, and I turned around to him and said, "Where's the limo?" And he said, "I've got it back. It's getting restored." He's actually got it back in his possession now.
Wow. You know what? And I know that they needed a second limo for his wife too, for protection reasons.
Yeah. But he had the camouflage limo, didn't he?
Yeah. Because I thought that was at the warehouse in Connecticut.
No, I believe. Well, I don't know whether he's given it to them now, but I believe he said it was getting restored, and he sent a picture of it to me, which was interesting. But
why isn't he here right now?
I know. Try and get him.
One day.
He does speak to us all the time on Twitter, but trying to get him to do anything's another story. But he's an old guy. He's retired now, isn't he? Bless him.
Oh, we love him. He does come to Long Island, though. I kind of want to meet him. I think I should. I think I owe it to myself, right? A couple weeks he'll be here.
100%. But Hogan wins this one in the end. Really, really good match. Great pop at the end. It's what the storytelling should be now, isn't it?
Yep. And it's nothing more than just, I'm for my country, I'm against my country. That's it. Yeah. You know, it's a recipe to, you know, where
it's just simple. And they did replicate this with Cena and Rusev to a certain extent at WrestleMania a number of years later. And again, it worked.
Yep.
It worked, mate, you know what I mean? It really did.
With minimal critics. The way they boosted Rusev was fantastic. They could, by the way, AEW has finally figured something out with him. Hopefully he does come back from injury, but they just gave him a 5-year contract.
Yes, I seen that. Yeah, I was going to say that just now.
Good for them. You know, look, the guy, he could do it. If he's a brute, you know, keep him that way. But I will say, man, it was a good pay-per-view. This WrestleMania was a fun one. It was when you look at it.
Just let me ask you something as well, is with the whole war situation and all like that, could they do that now? But with the Russians?
If they had no stockholders, you know, probably. But now you're a publicly traded company that might, if somebody purchases it and then looks at what they're purchasing, Warren Buffett said it best: invest in the companies that you use. So if I'm watching it, that's one thing, you know. But if somebody's just bought it and then all of a sudden they're like, "What is this crap?" and they saw this, and they'd be like, yeah, I don't know if I'd want that. You'd sell, so you're answering to other people.
Yeah. Right then, out of stars, I'm going to say on this one, mate, 3.5. And the reason I'm going to say that is because the main event was, do you know what? No, I'm not. I'm going to give it a 4, right? And the critiques I'm got, obviously the main event was awesome. Nasty Boys, Bret Hart, Hart Foundation was great. Rocker's great. Undertaker great. Warrior and Savage amazing. Bossman perfect, great. But my 2 critiques of this is, one, what they done to Demolition. I wasn't happy with. Maybe that's just me personally as a fan, but also the card placement I didn't like.
Yeah, they could have shuffled it in any way. I don't like critiquing that because I know that people need a piss break, and but
I do. But I feel like they've put 4 from the Big Boss Man, Mr. Perfect. There's 4 matches there, which I know only go quite short, but still a little bit not ideal. You know what I mean?
Okay, but let's consider this. Okay, you could have 5 minutes here eliminated if you got rid of the Tenru match and Power and Glory. Get rid of them. Have Demolition and LOD face each other.
Yeah,
this is WrestleMania. I'm sorry, but
yeah.
And you could get rid of one other match on there. You don't need the Mountie on there. I love Mr. Rougeau. I love you so much, but it wasn't needed here.
No. So what are you going to give it then? What's your rating for this?
I mean, just based off Warrior Macho Man alone, you got to give it. That's 3 in itself.
Yeah.
But I'm going to give it a 4 overall. Good storytelling here.
Okay.
The early 90s is just, the pre-new gen stuff is really where we're hitting home.
Yeah. And the thing is, I feel like nowadays, they, here we were still in arenas. We hadn't got to the big WrestleMania stadium shows at this point. It just shows you, they were on point at this point, wasn't they? They really was. And I feel like because it was pay-per-view back then, everyone was a home run or pretty much near that. They really, really put everything into it and put the stories going on to it all leading up by the pay-per-view to see the combination of this feud, that feud. But now I don't think we get that. I think the networks ruined everything.
No, look, you know what? And they had their fan base. They were in California. And who better to be sitting ringside and getting a little interview with than Donald Trump, Chuck Norris, Henry Winkler, and Lou Ferrigno.
Did you know that Chuck Norris can believe it's not butter?
Chuck Norris is 82 today.
It's crazy, isn't it?
And he's in the best shape.
Happy birthday, sir.
Yeah, happy birthday. Thank you for taking out Jeff Jarrett during that casket match.
Did you know the Boogeyman used to worry about Chuck Norris coming out of his closet when he was a kid?
Behind Chuck Norris's beard is another fist?
He was the first person to email a roundhouse kick.
Nice. I got to check my spam. Anyway, guys, that was WrestleMania 7. And it was a solid show. You won't ever regret looking at this. You could skip what you want, but watch what we tell you to watch, my friends.
Yeah. And just to round that off for you guys, watch Rockers versus Haku and Barbarian, watch Texas Tornado versus Dino Bravo. Not that disclaimer, not that it was a great match, but just see if you can tell that Texas Tornado's only got 1 foot. Definitely watch British Bulldog Warlord, watch Nasty Boys versus Hart Foundation, Roberts, Martel, Undertaker for the nostalgia, Warrior versus Savage, and then Bossman versus Perfect, and then skip right through to Hogan versus Slaughter. So that's the route that I'd go to. Although, to be fair, when you say skipping from the combined total of the 4 matches before Hogan Slaughter was a combined total of 13 minutes, so it's not like it's a long time. If you've got the spare time, maybe even watch them because they just do skip through, and at least you get to see the nostalgia instances, I suppose. But make sure you leave us a like, a comment, subscribe to the channel. We appreciate all your support, guys. We really do. And we will see you again at the same time, same place next week. And we're not going to tell you what we're going to do yet, but we will find out soon. Until then, guys, take care.
But it won't be meth.
No. Well, maybe if we can get it through customs, who knows? Okay, guys, take care. Bye now.